Hi all, welcome back to more Normandy, the beginning and the end. Using the one in the Storm Soul expansion, playing scenario 2, German counterattack. Well, quite a few days went by since my last part 5. Oh, sorry, this is part 6. Yeah. And again, ended with frustration in part 5, and really felt like I was going to just give up on it and that. And then I get up the next day and I think, well, let's look into this. Why are you having issues with this? Let's do some research. Look on some of the things that are causing you hiccups, and I found quite a few things. And the thing is, I'm still encouraged. I still feel like I want to play this game. I still don't want to give up on it, but it's just, I think what's been happening is I've not been having the fun that I'm meant to have, because I'm getting hung up with these frustrations and whatever. So gradually these things are, well, I'm saying gradually they're going to go away, but it seems that I no longer get through one frustration and another one comes along. There is a lot in this game. There is a lot. But I don't know if I should be having the troubles that I'm having. The things that I'm having troubles with are probably not. Don't feel like they should be causing me bother, but well, they are. Now, it is because it is probably one of the big things is I want to get everything right. I'm very pernickety when it comes to getting the rules right. I want to do everything by the book. A lot of people playing these games, they just move on and do what they think's right and whatever, and they have a great time with it. So I'm doing it my way and not having such a good time at the moment. So yeah, I get the feeling this part's probably not going to have any gameplay. I don't have an awful lot of time. There is a chance that I might get everything I'm want to talk about out the way, and it might not be a full part, and I can just pause it there and maybe get some gameplay in the next time. There's still a few things that I'm not clear about that I'm going to look a little more into, but I've been browsing through the forums. I've been looking at a lot of the Spanish threads and trying to translate them because I'm thinking they might be giving me some information. Although one of the ones I translated, I don't think was right when I looked more into it. Should I talk about that just now? No. I'll come to that one in that. Right, the first one, although I think I got hung up in the end here about what I was. And first of all, I was also being confused. We've still not, this infantry intel marker should not be here yet because we didn't roll the dice. We automatically gave it the order to attack, didn't we? We didn't roll the dice. I know that, and then I had to come back and roll the dice, and then when we rolled the dice, we got the assault result instead of the attack result, and I automatically gave it the attack result, which basically was going to place it here. But then I get a little confused, and then while I'm going through all things, getting confused, I forget about this, and I consider that what I'm trying to do is move this mortar on, and then I'm talking about it being this mortar intel marker and blah 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 blah. But it's not. What we're trying to resolve is the assault, how this goes about assaulting. In fact, you should really take this off, Grant. It was that one, wasn't it? Yeah. So take this off, move these back. It is going to be coming on like that. However, it got the order to assault, not to attack. Now, I'm still a little unclear here. If because that's an infantry, it's an infantry marker, but it's got motorized, mechanized, right? Now, however, when we look at the chart for infantry A, it does say it can use foot or wheeled. It doesn't talk about tracked at all, so that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So it can move as foot or wheeled. And I think one of the biggest things hanging me up here was, can this you know, could this right now, from there, assault this American infantry unit? And I think I was trying to find a way of that being able to be possible, because if we count on here, right, I think with that one, oh god, we've moved 2 on already. So the first one would have moved into there, the second one would have moved into there. The third one should go 1, 2, 3, shouldn't it? Because they're all queued back up on the road. Is that right? The first one was there, it doesn't count that hex, but that's where it starts. So it starts on that hex. Second one would have been starting on that hex. So the third one would be counting half a movement point, 1 movement point, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7. So it's going to cost it 7 movement points to move right down the road there. And then it's, as a wheeled mechanized unit, can it then assault? And I don't think it can, but it just, this all didn't seem very clear to me. But I'm going to have a look at that in a minute. First of all, one of the things I need to talk about in this is I was confused about the whole motorised and mechanised bits. There's a lot in it that feels like it could have been simplified, but anyway, it is what it is. There's talk, and the problem is there's different things in different rule books. What annoys me about this is it wasn't in the pink text. However, you could say, well, what it is has been a bit that's been removed. It's been removed from the book. But what I would have liked to have seen that, I would have liked to have seen it in pink text to say that it had been changed. And the changes, and I've talked about it already, so I'm getting my old version of the rules across here. Let's find out where we get this. Hang on. Okay, so it's this text here. This is on page 27. However, this is on my version 2 of the rule books. So this is old rules. This is page 27, 12.4.1, talking about motorised platoons. And this is what I had read initially and what I think had got me thinking that way. However, it's worded differently in the new rulebook. And I went over this, I think, in the last part. So it says here, let's deal with this bit first. Where is it? I'm lost. Yeah, it's this one here. So it says when dismounted, so this is motorised platoons, right? When dismounted, these anti-tank, artillery, anti-aircraft, and motorised platoons always keep their transports. So that means that, let's finish the paragraph, because it says, although they move on foot, they cannot enter those hexes prohibited to wheeled vehicles, as these platoons never abandon their transport vehicles. Now, the big one in this scenario, and probably a lot of scenarios, is blockage. Motorised vehicles, motorised transports and whatever cannot move through blockage. So if a motorised platoon becomes dismounted, it's saying there that it keeps its transport and then cannot move over blockage, right? And the main part here is and motorised platoons, right? So, and if we look in the new rule book, sorry, I'm not even at that bit. 12.4.1, there it's there. Let's move this a little bit back. And I read this and then I started scratching my head saying, right, now that looks like it's been changed. And it is worded properly in this new rule book. It says, when dismounted, this is in the new rule book, again 12.4.1, the rule, it's on page 26, because the rules, I don't know what's going on with them, to be honest. When dismounted, these anti-tank, artillery, and aircraft always keep their transports. No mention of motorised platoons there, okay? Although they move on foot, they cannot enter those hexes prohibited to wheel vehicles, as these platoons never abandon their transport vehicles. So, it's been changed there. What I would have liked to have seen there, although all I've done is remove that motorised platoons from there, I would have still liked to have seen that in the purple text to bring it to your attention that there'd been a change, you know. Okay, I mean, if you're reading the most up-to-date rules, you're not reading about motorised platoons. That's fine. But if, like me, you've been flipping about looking at other versions of rule books, and I'll tell you what, some of the PDFs online, there's a lot of discrepancies between them all. I don't really know which one we should be using that is completely complete. I mean, I've got to go by this, because this is what came in the latest game, Help Arrives. This is the rulebook I got, so I've got to kind of stick with this. But there's bits that are missing from this that I feel like are probably should be in it. But anyway, we'll not go into that. So the other bit, just before I start looking at the thread that I was wanting to talk about in BGG, the other bit was, and this is basically what the question starts off with on BGG, and it is this one here. So, and hold on, let me just see. I think the wording for this is exactly the same. Motorised infantry platoons, dismount. Yeah, the wording for this is exactly the same. Yeah, so there's not any change here. But like I said, that I would have liked to have seen that in pink, even if it was just that first sentence, because that's where there'd been a change. However, and it would have been in pink if something had been added. That's the thing. But because something's just been taken away, they've not brought it, they've not highlighted that, which for somebody that played the game before, I think it would have been nice. I mean, I haven't, but if you played the game using the 2.0 rules before and then play the 2.1 and you're seeing all that pink text or purple, whatever it is, and you're thinking, that's great, that's showing me what the changes are, and then you maybe miss that, and maybe think that still means what it means. Yeah, bringing to attention the other bit is here. Motorised infantry platoons that dismount from their transport. Now, this is motorised infantry. It differentiates between the two, doesn't it? Motorised infantry platoons that dismount from their transport may not remount unless stated otherwise in the scenario notes. Well, there's nothing in the notes that say that if we dismount these motorised infantry platoons, that they can remount again. So as soon as they dismount, that's it. They're not getting to mount up again. Okay? And this is the main rules. This isn't just the solo rules. So that works both ways. You know, if we were to mount up and then dismount, I'm assuming we're all mount up, because we don't have any infantry out there that have got trucks, so have we? No. But anyway, there's a difference in the motorised artillery, anti-aircraft and anti-tank platoons. They may limber and unlimber any number of times unless otherwise indicated by the scenario rules. So it's different for them. They can mount up, dismount, and the rules, there's certain rules, conditions, movement points that they need to spend to do it all and whatever, and that's fair enough. So, but for infantry platoons, as soon as they dismount, like I'm saying, what's maybe not so clear there is, if they start the scenario unmounted, can they mount and then dismount and then not be able to mount again? I would think so, but because that's saying they've got to actually dismount from their transport first. So if they've not mounted up on their transport to start the scenario, my guess is they probably will be. And wouldn't you have them that way if they had transport? Yeah, maybe that's a bit of a naff one. Anyway, so right, over to BGG. Okay, so first of all, looking at this thread, motorised infantry movement as infantry was posted by Mark Walker, who's he's a designer himself, isn't it? That's one of his games, isn't it? So he says, "Hi guys, so motorised infantry dismounts, it cannot remount. Does it use wheeled or foot movement? Thanks in advance." Okay, so this is a designer of the game we're playing, Nicholas Escubi. Hi Mark, once the motorised infantry dismounts, use foot movement. Do not reassemble unless indicated in the special rules of the scenario. So that's what we are setting at scenario 2. So once, and like I say, we're looking at the AI side of this, but they're moving about with their intel markers. If they come off them, even with their intel markers, I'm guessing, then that's going away. We're chucking the motorised, mechanised counters away and whatever. I mean, while they're sitting as intel markers, well, that's not true, because I'm talking about moving them into areas on foot, aren't I? Which means they dismount. Because they're intel markers, I guess we've just got to assume that they've then dismounted then, I suppose. Anyway, right, so that was the first part of it. And here was this. So there was a follow-up to this. It was a reminder that dismounted motorised infantry cannot cross blockage hex. So that's it. So I'm looking at this thinking, right, okay, so they can't. And then, well, to be honest, this is the designer that's agreed with that. He says, right, Marok, thanks. Remember, dismounted motorised infantry cannot cross blockage hex. So then the plot thickens, and then, so motorised infantry can't remount for the rest of the scenario, or just can't remount on that turn. Rest of the scenario, right, that's come back to that one. But this is where Mark here comes in, to commenting on the, remember, dismounted motorised infantry cannot cross blockage hex. This looks weird. If dismounted infantry lose definitely their trucks, they go back to the rear as they have nothing to do in enemy contact. Why can't it cross blockage? Mark Walker says, I agreed, I just let them cross. So the rules state the vehicles are expected to still be with the troops. I don't like this rule though. So then Nicholas realises, again, the designer, he says, hi Marco, just notice right now the rule in English have a rat of translation. So again, it could have been something that came across, lost in the translation between Spanish and English or whatever. So then he's highlighted this paragraph that I've just read that doesn't mention infantry platoons. When dismounted, these anti-tank, artillery, anti-aircraft always keep their transport. And then he points it out down the bottom. He says, so it only applies to towed heavy weapons. The motorised infantry, when it dismounts, acts normally. So that's fine. So then he apologises for the rat, but so that's good. So we've got that problem solved. So if they dismount, they can't mount up again. And infantry that have dismounted don't... Although, well, no, they don't have their trucks anymore. It's only the anti-tank and the anti-aircraft and whatever. They would dismount, and the thing is, they can mount up again as well. So, but then they would not be able to cross blockage because they can't use foot movement. That would be right, wouldn't that? Yeah, because they've always got their trucks with them. Okay, so that's that bit solved. It doesn't quite solve the issue that I'm wondering about. Well, not yet. I think we need to look. I think all we need to do is look into the rules to see can this carry out an assault right now on this. I mean, surely not. Surely not. So what I did? Yeah, let's stop BGG and go back to this then. So what I did get around to doing was watching a bit more of the Spanish guys' videos. Just try to watch through the subtitles. It's not easy. Try to do that. But I watched him again. Unfortunately, he's playing the roles reverse. He's playing as the Germans and having the AI as the Americans. So, which is a bit of a shame, because it might have helped me out a bit more if it had been the other way about. He's also not playing with intel markers, which is a shame as well. Because I'm not quite seeing how that works. What I do see him doing with his German troops is, and now it must, I've not looked into the rule of this yet, but it must take half movement points for the units to dismount. So what he was doing was moving them. Now they've got 13 movement points, so he was moving them 6 movement points and then dismounting them. Any more than 6 movement points, he wouldn't then be able to dismount them. So it must take half their movement points to dismount. So he was doing that, and right. Hang on. So with that, if these units were to try and enter this hex, and my eyes, they would need to have dismounted to be able to do it. Right, now remember, as an intel marker, if they're going to move into close assault, they move into the hex adjacent and then they become identified and we find out what they are. And if they're carrying out an assault, they've got to comprise, the intel marker has got to be identified and comprise the units that are able to carry out the assault, which is fair enough as well. But for them to be able to do that, if they need half their movement points, you can see that they can't reach. I mean, even if I was moving here, there's half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm saying they can't. Look at that. They could reach there for 6. That's if I'm counting them coming on there. We had them back down the road a little bit. So I'm guessing they're going to be reaching about there. But then they'd have to dismount, and they'd dismount there, so they wouldn't be able to have the movement points left to move into the hex. I don't think they can do that anyway. Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, let's just say that this truck was here. Could they do 1, 2, and then... No, because then dismounting would use up the rest of their movement points. See, they wouldn't be able to do it, would they? Right, here's the rules here for mounting and dismounting. This is on page 25, 12.4, platoons with intrinsic transport. So, it clearly is different if it's not, we're not talking about intrinsic transport here, but this is what we're mainly going to be talking about for now, I think. So, this is not really relevant. I think we can start here. So it says, in order to mount infantry, machine gun, mortar, or officers on an intrinsic transport, it must be activated. Spend half of its movement points rounded down to mount the vehicles, and then flip its counter over. This must be performed as a player's first action of the activation, spending movement points from the transport side, and being able to continue moving after that. So if we've got a unit that's got intrinsic transport, a 13-wheeled, then we spend 6 movement points and then flip over its vehicle side, and then we can move another, it would be 7 we'd spend, I think, isn't it? What did it say? Spend half rounded down. So half of its 13 would be 6.5, rounded down to 6. I think that's what that means there. So it would spend 6, then we flip it over, and then it would have another 7 to be able to move. That seems to be what it can do that way. In any case, it is not allowed to move prior to mounting. So it can't move a movement point and then begin its mounting, and then move again in the same activation. So this rule is applicable to artillery or AT gun platoons to be lumbered to their intrinsic transports. A platoon that is towed or mounted on intrinsic transport moves at the speed of its conveyance and uses movement point on horse. For intrinsic transport platoons, both dismounted / unlumbered platoons and transport are treated as the same platoon. A hit in the dismounted platoon, right, okay. I'm just about to read the bit that I'm on. A hit in the dismounted platoon affects their intrinsic transport too, and vice versa. So dismounting or unlumbering the platoon requires half the platoon's movement points rounded down, calculated from its transport side. When it dismounts or is unlumbered, the counter is flipped to its dismounted unlumbered side, artillery, anti-tank or infantry, and is marked as finished. So I can't do anything more when it's marked as finished. So that if we had a truck, if this was a truck here and it was wanting to assault there, then I wouldn't be able to do it. Because, it could move half a movement point, 1 movement point, it can move 1.5 movement points to there, then it could dismount, then it's marked finished. So it can't carry out the assault. And you might say, well, can it not just move right into the hex to carry out the assault? Well, that's where we're going next. Okay, so here's section 3 assault on page 29. Again, the main rules here still, because to be honest, although there is some things that happen with the solo side of it, it's all about these rules really. So Close assault, rule 14. Assault is a form of combat that takes place when platoons from both sides occupy the same hex. There are 4 kinds of assaults depending on attacking and defending platoon types. Okay, and I think that because we're using these intel markers, there is possibilities of one of the other different ones. I suppose the most common one's going to be just hand-to-hand combat when you've got infantry platoons. But anyway, each kind has specific rules for resolving the assault. In all cases, the defending platoons... this confused me a little bit. It says, in all cases, the defending platoons must be attacked and an assault is not possible if the assaulted hex contains ineligible defenders. Full stop, right? So, when I first read this, I thought, is this the ineligible defenders falling on here? What is an ineligible defender? So it carries on. Motorcycle, artillery, anti-tank, anti-aircraft, vehicles without fire factors, including mounted motorised units, which is very important, and mortar platoons cannot enter an enemy-occupied hex to assault it. So that's like the ones that can't enter it. So I'm not sure what an ineligible defender is. I think it's in here, but it's just the way it's worded there makes you think that are these the ineligible defenders? But it clearly says that these are cannot enter an enemy-occupied hex to assault it. All these things. The only heavy weapon that may assault is a machine gun platoon. And then there's a procedure here, right? So the important bit there is vehicles without fire factors. Well, if we flip over, here's the thing here. What does that say? I mean, if I'm moving, we're looking at infantry A here, right? And if I'm moving them with wheeled movement, they've got a movement of 13, right? So I've got to assume that they've no fire factors. If it was us right now, right, and we had, well, in fact, no, let's not just. I need an example here. Hang on. Right, so there's a Panzer Grenadier unit on its intrinsic. There he's there, right? That's him unmounted, but there's him mounted up. He's got a movement of 13. Right, he can't attack. This couldn't move in there and assault. However, it's like that. It could, but we know that on flipping it from that to that uses up half its movement point and makes it finished. So it can't do it that turn. Intel markers. I don't know. Is there no information in the rules about that? And while we're on it though, if we remember in here, you see the guys here. But this is dismounted, so this can't mount up again. And the reason that's, well, why is that dismounted? Why did they all dismount then? Because they had to cross the blockage, which they had to move by foot. Did these have to move by foot as well? I suppose what I'm wondering there is these are different. These are mechanised. Look at these on the other side. These have a fire factor. So it seems to me like these could assault like that way up. I'm not quite sure why these have all dismounted, but that's going back a bit because this one's still on the road. Well, hang on. They got identified, but and these did cross over into the blockage. Yeah, because these are out of line of sight, aren't they? Sorry, I'm not showing you any of that. These are out of line of sight. This spotted that, identified this, but because they crossed that blockage, They done that on foot, so they must have had to dismount. But I don't know if these technically should have to have dismounted or not. I think the only place you're going to find that is in the solo side at Grant for the Intel markers. Yeah, so just coming back to the motorised mechanised part then. This is on page 17 under the solo rule book under rule 8.1 movement. Any I-force with motorised mechanised marker can move using wheel track movement instead of foot movement if the movement is safe. If the movement is safe. Okay. Well, there's a highlight right away, Grant. Have you considered that? I think it was, because I think we had to stop in a safe place anyway. Right, well, it can only use it if it's safe. Intel markers don't need to do mount, dismount, or lumbar operations. See? Yeah. So the fact that... Well, hang on. No, Grant. It's saying they don't need to do them operations. It doesn't necessarily mean that they won't. They can still dismount. It's just they're not carrying it out as an operation, I think. These markers will be placed on Intel markers. Yeah, okay. I know I've read through all this before. The other bit was on page 20, which I know that we've read before as well. And that's about it's about if you're... it's on page 20. Yes, here. So this is when you're identifying an Intel marker. It says any Intel marker with motorised mechanised marker should be replaced by a compatible company, motorcycle mechanised or motorised company, or should be equipped with trucks. Yeah, again, but when I read that, I thought, well, because we could roll and get an airborne infantry company, but they're not motorised or mechanised, but they could come with trucks. It's all a bit confusing, all that. God, I knew the still things weren't... Well, I think you're just gonna have to use the common sense side of this, but... And reading that one previously about they don't use unmount operations, whereas the player does. Sorry, I know I'm moving the camera a bit there. I've got it plugged in still because I don't have much charge, and the tripod's a bit loose still, so it's moving about. But although it says they don't use the operations, then surely it's still got to have been considered this. Well, actually, I don't know. Well, the marker's away now, isn't it? The motorised mechanised marker's not there anymore because these are now identified. I'm not sure how to deal with that. Surely these have got to be in a dismounted state because they crossed the blockage. They couldn't have done that while they were wheeled, and they're only either foot or wheeled. There wasn't an option for them to be tracked. So surely these had to dismount, and going by the scenario, well, not just scenario rules, the main rules say that when an infantry platoon dismounts, it cannot mount again unless it says so in the scenario rules. The odd part about this though is this is dismounted as well, and I'm not so sure that was necessary, but I don't know. I'm just going to leave that in there. But I can see now, when it comes round for us to try and make an assault move with us, it may well try and move into... Well, I don't think it can. And I think it's going to go down a different path when we look at the flow chart. Well, let's quickly look at that. Not that I'm going to do any of this just now, because I don't really have the time or that for this. And there's a few other things I wanted to mention. So if they got the assault order, select a target, and it says the target closest heads with player platoons that may be assaulted by means of a safety assault. Well, that would still be these here, I think. So I think that's still their target. Well, I've got to find something. It moves from there to there, select the target. It sort of say if you've not got a target. So can it be reached in this activation? Well, that would have to be no now. Well, there's no or no target available, or it's a heavy weapons unit. So I suppose, anyway, it still brings us to here. May it attack with MFF? No. May it be attacked with MFF? No. Can it move to a hex with a higher divisor closer to target or objective? How the heck's objective come into that? That's the first time I've seen that. Here's me talking about they'll not move towards objectives, but if we didn't have a target right now, could that unit move to a hex that's closer to an objective? Well, yes, we know it can actually move. It can move right onto this hex. It could take this objective. At the moment, I'm not still sure if we've got a target then. The target was, it said, the closest hex with player platoons that may be assaulted by means of a safety assault. Well, that is, there's a safety assault available in that, but we can't reach it. But does that mean, that could still mean that is our target? And we've only got medium activity level marker on these, but if you had a high level activity marker on them, it could move right to there. Then again, would it would have to dismount as well, which it could do. It could move to there and dismount, or move to somewhere and dismount. Because if it doesn't dismount, it then can't assault next turn, because when it dismounts, it's marked finished. Yeah, so when do they dismount? I mean, it says they don't use dismount operations. Does that mean that they can ignore that? Does that actually mean that they can ignore the fact that they don't need to dismount? They can just move in there with foot movement. To be honest, that's what I did. That's what I did with these. I didn't. All I said was, right, they've moved to there, down the road, and then the next turn, I said, right, they're going to move to there. Yeah, I think I read it that they didn't need to do the mount dismount, so I just said they're just moving over that blockage with foot movement. Then they became identified, and then I've not got them on their transport side. I don't know if that... Well, like I've said, surely that can't be on its transport side anymore. But, so does that mean we could move that there, and then if they got another action, they would just move into there with us all? Because they can move in with foot movement, they can reach it with foot movement. I suppose that's how I would have to take it. So what I mean by that is, let's just say this is moved down to here, right? And let's just say this was a high activity level marker, and it got an extra turn. It got an extra turn. They were over the US. US can't do anything. Comes back to us. He activates again, like in this state, gets the assault order, right, and then moves with foot movement, moves into the hex to assault. I think that's how that has to work. Because if it has to dismount and all that beforehand, then it would have had to do that at the end of the last turn. It would have to prepare for that, like we would. So I'm going to have to say that's the way it goes. Right, coming back to the flowchart then. I think it would still be classed as a target though, but so can move to a hex with higher divisor closer to target or objective. Obviously yes, there's a safe movement, yes, move to that hex. You'd have to find out what the hex was. Again, remember we did come across a bit that says that if it just says move to hex, then you either use defensive or advanced movement. Right, okay, I was on pause there for a bit, so not quite sure where I was at. I think we decided that some of these things we're just going to have to assume. So moving on, another thing I was concerned about was in an assault was the final defensive fire. Without going into this too deeply, I'll go into it more when we actually carry this out. The impression I got at first was that when a unit moved let's just say this wasn't marked finished. When a unit moved to here to carry out the assault, then this unit could do reaction fire as normal because it's moved towards it. Now, it doesn't need to have a reaction marker. Remember, we get half fire factors. It could have a reaction marker and still fire. Now, the impression I got at first was it could do the reaction. Then when the units decided to move in to do the assault, you get a final defensive fire. So it could carry out reaction and it could carry out final defensive fire. But I thought, that seems a bit strange. The examples in the book don't show it that way. They kind of talk about it one or the other. And in all honesty, it's not that clear in the rule book about if you can do it that way or not. But there was a thread here, and unfortunately it was in Spanish, but the guy's got it translated here. It says, as seen in point 14 of the rules, assault is a few previous steps for each section that approach the hex to assault. In the case of reaction fire, the conditions in which it can react are clear, since after the reaction it will be completed. In the case of final defensive fire, and the thing with, let me butt in there. The thing with final defensive fire, if the unit's marked finished, it can still do final defensive fire. And again, it'll be at half fire factors unless it's marked with reaction. So, in the case of final defensive fire, following the rules, the units of the hex to assault could make final defensive fire against each section that, moving as a group and overcoming the morale check, get into the hex to assault. This would, in the case of adding units to an assault from different hexes or moving one by one, that the final defensive fire may be made. That the final defensive fire be made for each unit / stack separately more than one time. That would be correct. Remember, this has been translated. So the other thing is, if they're moving from different hexes, it seems to be clear in the rules that you could fire on them both, but like more than one of them coming from different hexes. I think it's a wee bit confusing, but Mark here replies, and he's got this clear because you can see the designer comments afterwards. And Mark thanks for help giving support. So he's clearly read this and agrees with it. So Mark says, as far as I know, that yes, it's correct. So maybe it's not important what the guy's saying about I think he's talking about coming from different hexes and things. But this is the important bit is in here. He says, note that a platoon may only fire once during an opposing activation. For example, it can fire defensively during the enemy move, that's him talking about reaction, but it wouldn't be able to use final defensive fire. Or it is already finished from a previous activation, and it can use final defensive fire during the assault. So right now, even though these are marked finished, right, and I was to move up to, the Germans were to move up to him, it couldn't do the reaction fire, but if we were assaulting into that hex, because he was finished due to the previous activation, he could still carry out final defensive fire, albeit at half fire factor because he's not got a reaction marker. Anyway, I don't think that was that clear in the rules. And also, I came across one thread which I translated, and the guy was asking, can you do reaction and final defensive fire? And the answer was yes, and that's clearly been wrong. I checked the guy's name, and it wasn't an official name, so my take is the guy got that one wrong. So that was another thing that was concerning me a little bit. Right, and this was another thing that I came across. German counter-attack rules questions. It was talking about the road, the VPs, and whatever. And this thing about them being... Actually, I meant to read it again because it's explained here. So anyway, this guy, hi, nice game altogether, just some rules clarification for German counterattack. The scenario says that the American player cannot fight from the hexes adjacent to the road. And then, so he's got 3 questions. Can they pass these hexes and fight on the road hexes? Can they fight on the road? Well, yes, I think. What is the sort of historical basis for this restriction? Right, so Terry answers, because he's looked into this, and I don't think he'd played it, so he says, we must have looked into it. He says, those are some really weird victory conditions. It should say the German player must clear the road versus clean, right? So I assumed that. So it's not mean clean the road, it's clear the road. But again, lost in translation, okay? That second victory condition can be interpreted to mean that any American platoons adjacent to the main road cannot be in good order at the end of the scenario. So if any are adjacent and they aren't marked routed, then the Germans fail the scenario. So what he's saying there is, what it's meaning is, you need to have, if any American platoons are adjacent to that road, they need to be routed, or you failed the scenario as the Germans. So it says, so since the goal was clearing the road D800 to 817 and controlling bridges / town, if any Americans are adjacent to the road and not routed, then Americans will win. So your questions: 1, yes; 2, yes; 3, poor English on the victory conditions. So again, I guess it's lost in translation. What did it say again? Yeah, German counter-attack. I want to see if does that make sense when you read it now? Yeah. Look. See, it says American platoons. So the victory conditions are the German player must do that, clear the road, and take control of the hexes. So no American platoons on the road, and they've got all the objective hexes, right, and the towns and the bridges. And then it says American platoons positioned adjacent to hexes along the main road. See, why it says may not fight, I do not know. Right, it's meaning that they must. Why did it not just say American platoons that are adjacent to the road need to be marked routed? That's clear now. That's clear, but it's not really clear when you're reading that. Of course, the other one that's not clear to me is the whole 2 victory points for the road thing, but that's the solo side of things. So yeah, that's and I think this is also where it's talked about. And this is the guy asking about, again, more scenario 2 questions, clarifications. And then it's Samuel here who answers. Right, I think this is the only bit that really, well, I need to bring to attention. Because even Samuel says, that was an amazingly clear explanation, many thanks. When I read it at first, I didn't really quite understand those. So he says, hi, the way I understand... Hi, the way I understood the scenario, and this more or less answers all your questions. I know I've not showed the questions, but let's just look at the answer. Is that no units start routed. Okay. I think after reading that and I've got that now. It's actually the Germans' goal to advance along the main road and clear it from US units. At the end of the scenario, Germans should control all the road hexes and bridges, and all US units should be off the road or routed if still adjacent to road hexes. Yeah, I've been reading that in the wrong way. So maybe it's not quite fully a translation thing. It's maybe just me, the way I've read it. And we don't need to bother about the rest there. Okay, so I think that's everything there. So one of the things I took note about, and this was while looking through all the assault rules and that. This is in the main rule book, and I wondered if this was in a play aid. I don't think it is. I haven't searched high and low, but it looks quite complete in the rule book here, so I think it's just meant to be a chart in the rule book. This is on page 30, and it basically shows you this is all about assault and what the assault conditions need to be. There's attacker, defender, you see. Remember I was saying about ineligible defenders. This is what they need to be to have the attacker, and then that would determine, because you've got 4 different types of close combat. You've got hand-to-hand, you've got anti-armour, you've got armoured assault, and what's the other one? There's another one, isn't there? Anti-armour assault, hand-to-hand, armoured assault. There is 4, isn't there? Resolving assaults, hand-to-hand, armour support, anti-armour, and there is a fourth one. Anti-armour, armoured assault. Oh! That one's repeated twice, that's why, Grant. Right, there is only 3 then. There's something slightly different about that though, isn't there? Because, I mean, why is it listed twice? Oh no. Yeah, armoured assault. Oh no, armour support or armoured assault. They are different. So are they showing different here? No. Hand-to-hand, armoured assault, anti-armour assault. There's no armour support there. Oh, hang on. See the little bullet here with the 1 asterisk, which is under these 3 hand-to-hand ones, and this armoured assault, it says, these assault types should change to armour support if the attacker includes both troops/MG and AFV/NAFV platoons. So that's where armour support comes in. So there's 4 different ones, and I thought this looks like it might be useful to find out exactly what it is we're going to be doing. It's more than likely it's going to be hand-to-hand, but the fact that we've got Panzer Grenadier mechanised units out there, but then I've dismounted them all, so my take on that is they're now all just classed as infantry, so yeah. Anyway, it was just to bring this to mind. I'm going to have to be looking at this when it comes the time that we get this assault done. Where does that leave us? Well, I'm still playing the game, I guess. I'll unplug that just now. Should have enough charge left. I was seriously thinking about scrapping it, and I was actually looking over Combat Commander again, and I'm thinking, well, it's a similar tactical type game, but I've always been, again, it's one game I want to get to the table. Now, it's definitely a 2-player game, but there's apparently the guy from the UK, James Watton, he's got a bot out there that's, I think you can get a digital version of it as well. I don't like using the digital stuff, but there's a couple of things you need to print out. Apparently it's a way of picking the order for the units, but you've still got to decide which units I think they're going to do the order, so it's going to be not in my comfort zone really, but I still feel like I've had that game for long enough and I'd quite like to try it, because I think it is a game I could possibly introduce a friend to trying to play it one day, one-on-one, but might be better to do that first before messing about with the solo side of it. And then, I thought I could shove this to the side and put something else on the table, but I don't know, I still do want this to work, but I'm frightened that, again, I'm going to sit down. My next chance to play a little bit is going to be probably this is Sunday, so Tuesday evening. I should be able to sit down and relax and play a little bit, but my fear is I'm going to get more frustrations. The stuff I've talked about there, if anybody again wants to give me any feedback, I know Hal's trying to encourage me to keep going. I haven't go back to replying to your comment, Hal, about, you understand that I'm getting frustrated and whatever. I could probably, let's see exactly, because I think he makes some comment as well. Maybe we should add them to this video, because there's no gameplay anyway, so we could just finish off with a couple of comments. Right, couple of quick comments just to mention. This is going back a bit to the first part, actually. John Brown, this is part 19, so I think we've got 20 parts done with that, wasn't it? At the 56.5 minute mark, he says, I think in the defensive mode you would follow the no target line from the selected target node, which would eventually lead you to place a reaction marker. Yeah, and I never really thought about that as well, because we were looking at being in defensive mode at the time, because I'd messed the rush resistance up. I'm sure he's probably right there. I didn't bother looking deeply into that, but hopefully it'll trigger something if we are in defensive mode again that I need to think that way. So John again on part 1 of the second scenario. At the hour and 12-minute mark, he says, I agree with your assessment of how the lineup works. I think he's meaning this, without going into it, I'm sure I looked earlier. I think he's meaning about how these line up off the map. So, yeah, I think there's a few games do this, don't they? Because these are coming down the road. They're not all sort of huddled in this one hex. So they've got to come on like that, and they've got to spend movement points as they come. So he agrees with that, if that's the right bit anyway. Right, and then Hal, well, at first he makes a comment and then retracts it. This was on part 5, so the last bit. He says at 7 minutes 45 seconds, you state that the motorised intel marker could move into the field hex across Bocage, and then he'll links 12.4.1 on page 26. It says, although they move on foot, they cannot enter those hexes prohibited to wheeled vehicles. Well, this is the thing I was talking about, was the fact that because it says they never abandon their transport, but that has been errated to say that infantry will ignore that bit. But it does say retracts that. It says, I'd like to retract my comment about the wheeled infantry. Seems like they get dropped off, the transport trucks leave, so so he realises as well. But you can see where that is confusing, because I talked about it in the rules, and it's an errata that they actually did make. Yeah, and then he's got a big comment. It says one last set of comment. I know how frustrated you can get where there is lack of clarity on what exactly to do in the game. I think the complexity of the AI process exacerbated by translation and lack of quick responses you're used to on your questions impacts the frustration. Indeed, there's a big part of this about, well, both their points. The translation is trouble, and I think it's not came across. And this is the first time I've had that, I think, in any game that I've played, where it's been the game's been designed in a different language and then had to be translated into English. But there's bits coming through there that are frustrating, and also, I'm not getting responses. It's a shame. I feel like the designers are going to appear at some point. I think they do have other games. I was looking up the other game that they've got. What is it? Desert Struggle. I think that's the next one that they had in the lineup. But saying that was meant to be out in 21 or 22. So don't know. Maybe things have went wrong, and maybe that's why they're not on the scene anymore or whatever. But anyway, I was really happy to see John Brown chime in on this occasion, as he has a real aptitude for rule interpretation. Also Javier, who I applaud doing his best trying to respond in English. And he says, one thing is for sure, Javier's English is a whole lot better than my non-existent Spanish. Ditto for me as well there, Hal. And I agree. I mean, although I'm not the guy for the first question he answered was clearly not right, because it didn't, it's clearly stated in the rules, and I think he answered something else that was a bit, but you've got to remember, he's trying to write down in a language that he's not, so he's trying to help out, and he did the last 2 or 3, which again, I'll need to sit down and reply, and I don't want them to all build up too much. I always like to make some response at least. I think it's a bit rude when somebody takes the effort to answer your question, whether they're answering it with any authority or not, and then you should still give them a reply at least. So I will get around that. I agree with you there, Hal. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to watch your videos as soon as you release them, so I can try to help noodle your way through the ambiguity. Well, this part's I'll hopefully get this watched quite soon. To be honest, I could probably just release it, really, couldn't I? I always like to just watch over just in case I find something. You can sometimes. You could sometimes possibly offend, and I might have done it before as well, without knowing it. And you're a bit wary about that when you release it to the public. Not that there's a mass of people that watch my videos, it's not. I don't get flooded with thousands of views and whatever. It's a very, it's, even in the hobby that this is, you've got board games which are quite. There's not that many people into that. Then when you cut it down to war games, but then you cut it down even more to playing through a war game that's really drawn out as I do it, and really slow, and that it doesn't suit a lot of people watching. Funny enough, I had a comment from somebody else about D.D. at Tarawa, who appreciates the way that I do that, and that's how he plays the game as well. So there is people out there like that, and I will get back to comment on that one as well, if you happen to be watching this at this moment. I need to look. It was some comment about some rule, but I need to look back on it to see what he was meaning. Anyway, so I do like to watch. I was wondering where I was going with that. I do like to watch back over my videos before releasing them. And how it carries on. Just to comment on that. I will get this out there, and if any of you guys want to comment on any of the things that I've talked about, because I'm leaving some things in there that I'm still not quite clear about, and should this have been dismounted? How did Intel markers work? Was I right there in saying that they don't care about if they're motorised, mechanised, they'll just do whatever's the right one at the time? If they get the assault order and they're within range to move at foot, do they just do that, or do they have to actually dismount? Like I say, it says that they ignore that operation, but that could just mean that they don't. It doesn't come into their play. That it doesn't. They don't have to spend movement points and all that. They just automatically do it, but they clearly would have to be dismounted to be able to carry out the assault. So anyway. Yeah, so feel free to comment. Any comments on this game are appreciated to try and help me along. Keep me going with it. No guarantees, but I seem determined not to give it up. Even though this has got no gameplay in it whatsoever. So, right, anyway, how I'll finish off with it. I think that although a bit frustrating for you, you're making the correct decisions on how the game is meant to be played. Okay, well, that's good. Hang on. Right, sorry, I want to get this finished off now. I think that although a bit frustrating for you making correct decisions, how the game is meant to be played, my practice is to read the rules through once and then watch you put them in practice. Your style of learning the game as you progress is absolutely perfect for me. You're relentless in trying to get it right, and I think you are, except maybe the rush resistance in Scenario 1, which I'm annoyed about, actually. Good news is that it's clarified now. Yeah, for sure. I don't know what decision you'll make about continuing on with the game, but it seems like I am for now, Hal. So my opinion is that there's something about the depth of this game and the richness of the AI that attracts me. I agree, and it feels more a complete AI than these other games that, it feels more complete than Conflict to Heroes, although I like the card playing the instructions on Conflict Heroes, but the Heroes of Normandy, I couldn't quite get into that. But then I know John Brown said he did find that okay to get into, and it's all flowcharts. It feels like this should be better, to me anyway. Let me be clear that I fully recognise that it's you who's doing all the heavy lifting, recording and rule implementation. What I've seen you do is say that that's the way I'm going to play it. I think that's a great process, as hopefully John or Yavi and I can point out either the rule reference or render an opinion where we see a potential mistake. Anyway, I just wanted to know that your efforts are appreciated, whatever you decide needs to be the best for you. Yeah, I appreciate that, Hal, but it is. I mean, I do need to, I do need to be having fun. That is a priority. I think for a while I used to say that getting every rule right, getting all the rules right is the priority to me. Well, it's second in line, isn't it? I'm not going to be sitting here bored and not having any enjoyment at all just to play this, because you can see my videos go on a long time. This is my my time where I'm having my pleasure, my enjoyment in what I'm doing, the game, so I'm not going to be doing this. If I was doing that, I dare say some people do playthrough videos and whatever, and they maybe don't enjoy them, but they just bash on through them. I'm not like that. I want to be enjoying the game. And yeah, there's maybe 2 or 3 that I've played that I've stopped, which I've spoken about before, and maybe 1 or 2 that I played and had to struggle through to get through it because I wasn't quite fully enjoying it, but I felt like I had to kind of stretch it out. Anyway, right, this has dragged on long enough. I will come back on Tuesday and try and move some parts about. Hopefully this video will be up before that, so if you want to make any comments, help out in some of the areas that I might be getting wrong, then please do. Okay, I'll be back later. Cheers.